Hello there, I'm Jimmy Vegas, and today I want to talk about Like a Dragon, or YAKUZA as it used to be known in the West. It's one of my all-time favourite series, and it's one that I didn't get into straight away. I only started playing when YAKUZA 3 came out. Obviously now it's known as Like a Dragon. So the series itself has evolved so much over the years, and different wacky spin-offs have occurred. None more strange than the one that was announced just a couple of days ago. Yakuza Pirate in Hawaii. How very, very strange. So if you don't know, the latest game in the Yakuza series that you can play right now is Infinite Wealth. The one coming out in February in 2025 is Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza, or Yakuza Pirate in Hawaii. How very strange. How does that even work? There are so many game series that will just spin off and create different things, and they just don't seem to work. But every time the Like a Dragon series does it, it works. I don't know how or why. So I'm going to go through a couple of games here. In fact, a bunch of games I've played in the Yakuza series. The one which really kicked it off, I think, was Yakuza 0. Now, this one is, think of it as a prequel to the events of the original Yakuza game. And it was one that really took off more than I think the developers were expecting. So you have the opportunity to play as Kiryu, Kazuma, whatever you want to call him, and Majima. Majima is a favourite in the series with many, many people. But that game itself is what really blew the Yakuza series up. Yakuza Kiwami, this is an absolute perfect recreation of the original game. The original game on PS2, which I no longer own, had awful voice acting. The camera angles weren't exactly great, but this was a full remake in the, what was it, Like a Dragon Engine? Dragon Engine, whatever you want to call it. Fantastic game. They followed that up with Kiwami 2. Now, Ryuji is, look at his face. I'm not sure if that's in focus. He is one of my favourite antagonists in the entire series. I can't tell you how or why, but I thoroughly enjoyed Kiwami 2. I think I enjoyed it more than the original Kiwami. But so far in the series, nothing odd, majorly strange has started taking place. The first two games, Kiwami and Kiwami 2, are just straightforward Yakuza games, and they did well. It started getting a bit, not strange, but I actually enjoy it. It started taking trips abroad, because we end up in Okinawa in Yakuza 3. And if I go into here, you can see Yakuza 3 is on one disc and Yakuza 5 is on a separate disc. So I'll talk about Yakuza 3. It is probably one of the most disliked Yakuza games, but I would say my favourite. The reason I say it's my favourite is because it's the first one I ever played. We take Kazuma to Okinawa and he's now in charge of an orphanage. It doesn't sound very Yakuza-y at this point, does it? And this is the point you can tell where the developers started thinking, I know, let's do some strange different things. Moving on to Yakuza 4, we introduce Akiyama. Akiyama is another favourite in the series, and Saejima ends up being, in Yakuza 5, and we get to play and fight bears with him. At that point, that's where the Yakuza series becomes crazy. And all the while, keep in mind that Yakuza is known as Like a Dragon in Japan. Now, between those releases of 3, 4, and 5, we end up with this. This is bizarre, and weirdly enough, is the most expensive Yakuza game to get hold of. Dead Souls. I don't know why this one even existed. I really don't know why this existed. It's an awful game. Well, no, it's not awful. It's hilariously bad, but it's good. There's guns, and it does not make sense. But it was at this point that the Like a Dragon series just shifted into something it wanted to be, something different. And I appreciate that for what it is. The reason it's so expensive is because it is exclusively locked to the PS3. You cannot get that game on any other console at all. So trying to find that on the second-hand market is very, very expensive. Next in the series of Yakuza games, it felt very light, just checking the disc was in there, is Yakuza 6. And this one I feel was a bit deceptive because it made you feel it was the end of Kazuma Kiryu. Probably worth mentioning at this point, there will be spoilers for the rest of this video. But I'm hoping that because you're watching this video, you already know the Like a Dragon series, what happens, where it goes and everything. But this one was portrayed as being the end of what we imagine the Yakuza series to be, or Kazuma Kiryu's story. It technically was, but there were things that happened a little later on. At this point, things started to break away and shift in the Yakuza series. And what originally started out as a bit of a joke, I think was possibly an April Fool's, is that Yakuza was going to be a turn-based game. And it did actually do it. Weirdly enough, this one, Like a Dragon, well, as it's known now, Yakuza Like a Dragon, this is Yakuza 7 in Japan. This one ended up being turn-based in the end, and weirdly, it worked well. It worked so well, I bought it twice and played it twice. This was the first one I bought, and then I bought the Steelbook version later for Xbox. That was where Yakuza took a different turn, and it ended up being turn-based. Not everybody could get along with that, which is why I think in some ways this exists. Judgment, known as Judge Eyes in Japan. When I first saw this, I thought, well, that's strange, but I'd love to get hold of it. It's basically Yakuza, but in the original fighting format. It's a bit slower paced than a Yakuza game. And I also own it on Xbox Series X, still sealed, just for collecting purposes. It felt like Yakuza, but not quite as hilarious, I guess. The idea and the premise is still the same, but at this point you could see that the studio was trying to diversify a little bit in what it was trying to do, and I think that is really, really good. And we ended up with what I consider to be the better of the two, Lost Judgment. This one is a long game. It's probably also worth noting this one is a long game, but we'll get to something else a little later on. Hang on, bear with me. So at this point, we haven't had a Judgment game for many years now, sadly. I'm not sure if there ever will be a Judgment 3. People would like a Judgment 3 because at this point, it's where everyone has split. People either like the whole turn-based thing or they like the free-flowing combat. And at this point as well, we've now morphed into Like a Dragon. We ended up getting Like a Dragon Ishin. So this was released as Like a Dragon Ishin many years ago in Japan, and we were lucky enough to get a remake of it. Is it technically a remake, a remaster? It's the same game, obviously, but it looks way better, plays way better. It's a really good game. I'm someone who loves Japan, and this game in and of itself was so cool to see from that period of time. The last one I'm going to show you, but not the last one I'm going to talk about, is Like a Dragon, The Man Who Raised His Name. This one, I feel, is a failure. The game isn't a failure, but how it was handled was a failure. You can only get this in Asia. It was never released physically in the West, which is why this one cost me a lot of money to get hold of. But it is a short game. Just checking this was in there, sorry. See? It's a very short game, but it's a good game. It's not turn-based, and it plays really, really nicely. This would have you believe, once again, that this is the end of Kazuma Kiryu's story, even though he is in Yakuza 7, Like a Dragon, and he's also in Infinite Wealth. So let's talk about Infinite Wealth before we move on to the final part. Infinite Wealth is a huge game. I only own it digitally at the moment. I don't have it physically. I've not been able to pick it up yet, or rather I've not got around to picking it up. It's a very long game, and it plays pretty much the same as the one before it, Like a Dragon. I like it, but I feel it does drag on just a tiny bit too much. And once again, that would have it portrayed as the finale to Kazuma Kiryu's story. Whether it is or not, I mean, if you've played it, you know the events, what happens in the game. If you haven't played it, go and play it. It's a really, really good game. It's a lot of fun. It's very different than some of the previous Yakuza games. They are very wacky now. They're crazy and funny. And I think that is why they've kind of just gone all out and gone with the newest one, which is out pretty soon. Pirate. I mean, it makes sense for Majima to be the title character in that. It really, really does, because he's got his eye patch. You know, he looks a bit like a pirate. I can't wait to play that one, but I imagine the length of that game is going to be similar to either The Man Who Erased His Name or Like a Dragon Ishin. I don't think it's going to be a fully fledged title. It's not something that we're probably going to be able to call Like a Dragon 9 or Yakuza 9, whatever. But I am very much looking forward to play it. It's going to be good. I just know it's going to be good. It's the game that I never knew I wanted that I want. Where is Yakuza Like a Dragon going to go from here? I don't think there's too many games left in the actual story. They're going to have to do something soon to kind of break away and create something new before it gets dry and stale, which is also the reason why I think they're releasing the Yakuza Pirate in Hawaii game to get it unstale. Is that a word? I don't know if that's a word. All of these games right here, I adore them. They are some of my all-time favourite games. Some are better than others, yes, I know. Some are longer than others, but they drag on maybe a little bit unnecessarily, but they're still good. Kazuma Kiryu will probably never die. At least in our hearts, he will never die. Whether he'll appear in another Like a Dragon game, who knows? Whether we'll ever get Judgment 3, who knows? I just don't know. But that's just what I think and how I feel about the Yakuza series. I wanted to make this video and talk about it because I'm passionate about these games, and I feel that you need to know just how much they can influence your life and how much enjoyment you will get out of them if you choose to start the Like a Dragon series. But I suppose the big question is, where do you start with Like a Dragon? Well, it's pretty obvious. Start with Yakuza 0. Start with Yakuza 0, go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. But as long as you start with at least 1 Kiwami and Kiwami 2, you're well on your way to getting yourself into this series. It gets wacky. I know there's a lot of different games. Maybe skip Dead Souls if you don't feel like it or can't get hold of it because it's so damn expensive. But if you never play the Yakuza series, I'm not quite sure why you've got this far in this video. But please give it a go because you'll thoroughly enjoy it, probably more than me. I just wish I had the time to platinum a lot of these games. I think I've only platinumed Judgment. I don't think I got all the achievements. Obviously, I've not got achievements. It's sealed, but I think I got the platinum Judgment. I'm not entirely sure. But they take a lot of work to fully get into. And like I said, Yakuza 3 is my favourite for all the wrong reasons, I guess. Anyway, let me know what you think of the Like a Dragon series, and I'll see you in the next one.